How we doing, Plymouth? We all right out there? Wah! Wah!
Mainly fair, mainly fair, mainly fair, moderate or good, mainly fair, mainly fair, moderate or good, Thames Dover White, mainly fair, the general synopsis at 0700, mainly fair, moderate or good, Chaffers, moderate, becoming good, moderate, becoming good, moderate, good,
We could only hint at the outlines of the story, I think, which was partly to do with the origins of music, the evolution of music, from the imitation of nature sounds. So we started with bird song, and then the electronics gradually, I hope, almost imperceptibly, it merged with pure electronic sounds. And then some samples of very, very basic ethnic music, some Australian Aboriginal music was used as source material for moving the thing on from simple bird imitation with electronics so the story went on like that. I think we're at a specific juncture now, especially with the aspects of popular music, things like Björk and trip hop and all of these various forms, and techno even, all of these forms are open to overlapping their concerns with the improvisation school, which is where I come from. So it's like suddenly there are people coming in who are interested in improvisation, but they bring a completely different set of musical criteria, musical knowledge, musical influences with them. So for me, it's like I have to discover how to improvise with a new generation, in effect. But because my discipline is so undisciplined, we call it free improvisation, which basically means I can do whatever I feel like. That leaves that as an open set of exchanges, in a sense, across generations.
Take the weight, please, adapt. Adapt, take away. Adapt or stop. Adapt, stop. It's about a metre away, please. You're about a metre away now, bud, but you need to close the stern in your, as you can see, a long way up the yoke coast. Gina, could you just lean on, please? Gina, lean on. Can you just lean on? Lean on.
It's called Contest Behaviour, and it's a piece of work in two parts. The first part was last night. It was basically a stereo sound piece, but coordinating with the lighting and the fountains in the Lido. Each section introduced by a short quotation from a Chinese philosopher called Sun Tzu, who wrote a book called The Art of War. And I was very interested because he's been picked up and used by scientists studying hermit crab behaviour. The second part is using some of mainly the same sounds, and it's an underwater version on 4-channel speakers underneath the water, and it's just something that people swimming can dip in and out of. Primarily, what I was interested in is this unique location here with the pool sort of jutting out into the sound itself, and just this sense of sort of being out amongst the elements, but actually some way kind of set apart from them. So the idea was to bring those sounds that are really audible. If you just dunk a hydrophone in the water the other side of the wall, you can pick up an incredible amount of activity. So just to bring that activity into the pool and have this strange mixed version of it. So, I mean, one thing that sort of was quite horrific, I think, when I first went out on a boat and started dunking hydrophones in, is just how noisy the sound is, how far sound travels, from speedboats particularly, really aggressive sounds that just kind of cut through everything, any sort of subtlety. And the fact that we had to go quite some distance before we could pick up anything other than sort of shipping traffic.
This piece started as an installation, a 24-channel installation commissioned by Living Coasts in Torquay, and it's all based on underwater recordings. And in that version of the piece, it was really about the movement models. It's about the way
and if you put your fingers in it, it responds. It does, yeah, because it's responsive to sound, I think. See me do it? I've actually been here for quite a while. I'm down.
Mum, do you want to come and see the marble one?
I see.
One day I was standing in a toy shop and there was one of those games where the marble rolls down the nails into a sort of score pot at the bottom, and it struck me that the nails made a nice plinky plonky noise, and I think that was probably the germ for the Sonic Marble Run. It's really lovely actually. It's really great watching people of all sort of backgrounds just kind of engaging with it and getting excited by it. It's really lovely. So it's real life really, you know. I've sort of mentioned before the physicality of sound, and I suppose what's inspiring about that is when we hear sound, it's quite a sort of abstract and potentially spiritual thing, but when we see what's making it, that's a really kind of grounded and physical thing. So the way those two worlds collide is quite inspiring as well.
And then, if your daddy feels it's okay, you can start his piece too. But if you get it wrong, you're going to get a new daddy.
Good morning business.
6h51. Dans 6 minutes, 7h.
7h moins 3, il est 7h.
I don't know.
17h.
Qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Alors qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Alors qu'est-ce qu'on fait?
Well, this piece of work for the Expo was done specifically for the new Cooperage building because of its history. And what I've done is basically, I was thinking about all the people who left and sailed out of the harbour, and also the technology they had at that time and what we have now. And the lack of shipping forecasts, the lack of that sort of information. So all these birds that you see set up have little snippets of the forecast on them. I kind of had an image of those fantastic bits of documentary footage you see of someone like David Attenborough walking amongst a whole flock of penguins, and all you hear is blah, 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 and there's nothing distinct until you stand close to them and then you can hear each individual bird. So it was that thing of you come in, you get the feeling of a flock, a huge crowd of birds, and then when you get closer you hear the individual ones and you pick out these snippets of very important, possibly life-saving information.
They're checking me from behind there because I know what I'm doing, I'm in charge of my work, I'm a freelancer, you know.
Oh, you're
I'm a freelancer.
Freelancer?
Yeah, I am.
Freelancer?
What's
so
wrong
you
with that?
get a sharp knife or scimitar or sabre and you lance people's oils.
Oils?
Pustules, all the pus comes out.
What?
Well, you said you're a lancer.
No, I didn't say a lancer, I said I'm a freelancer. I didn't know, I don't work for the doctors or anything. I'm for architects. I'm freelancer, freelancing.
Oh, freelance. I see.
You know, I do the tax on my own, yeah?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Lance on your own, yeah.
No, I'm the tax, not the And I'm free. Okay. I'm free, basically. That's it.
Okay, that's
fine. I'm free.
I don't know what an audience think about the whole piece, because the point of making the piece so fragmented is because I didn't want to ever shown kind of story or logic or to it. Yeah, I want to break it down because ultimately I think it's about people that are trying to talk and they cannot achieve it.
It's taking I'm taking things out of their original context, really, like mixing. There's one particular section where we were mixing train information or tube train information with the lines from Shakespeare, Antony and Cleopatra and the like, you know.
All rail passengers from Cleopatra, bang, short break, chop chop, chop chop.
this event is actually great because a lot of people are inventing new technologies, they're inventing new ways of making music, of making sound. And it's incredible that this level, this register exists, of sound making exists. And somehow usually it takes a few years to see this work filtered through and somehow it becomes part of the mainstream. A lot of experiments that start here end up being, part of the mainstream. And I think this journey and what happens here actually is very important to keep the innovation of sound art, the development of sound art going.
This evening's gig is the second gig of Expo Late, and Expo Late is a series of club nights around Expo where we present a complete range of artists within the environment of a club. And some of these artists will be very used to playing in club environments, and some of them won't. Some of them are much more used to formal concert environments, if you like. And the challenge of getting them to work with the audience and things like that is quite exciting for me. And for the audience themselves, who don't know, it's very difficult for people to predict what's going to come next, or what style of music is going to come next, because there is a lot of variety that we pack into there deliberately. So you're always a bit confused as to what to expect, I think. All of the things that are on the programme this evening are very much representative of sonic arts, which is obviously a huge field. Now every type of music has its own avant-garde, its own type of experimental music, from hip-hop to the use of the voice and to use of visuals and visuals and sound together. They each have their own wing of extreme experimental performance, and I'm interested in bringing all those things together, particularly in Expo, to put them back to back. It's fundamental to the work of Sonic Arts Network to forefront the various genres within experimental sound, because we strongly believe that there is a vast array of practice going on that is often completely underground and completely not commercially supported in any way at all, and that it needs to get to a listening public, and that's really part of our mission.
Yeah, I suppose we've developed a vocabulary of sound and an approach to making sound, but that's it really, is that we don't, none of it's pre-composed or even really rehearsed. I mean, we do, whenever we get together, we do kind of reacquaint ourselves with playing and our setup.
Sorry, can I just say I very much enjoyed that, by the way. Good on you. Yeah, if you're at the... You sticking around for the thing tomorrow?
Yeah.
If you're awake at 1, we're playing a broken mixing desk, which will be rubbish, but, anyway.
They can't eat each other now. Sorry about that. Didn't want blood effect in the water. Didn't think it would quite work. You see that one's got a skull, like this, and one of them's got a rose on the back. and each design was different, so they've each got their own little characteristics. So whatever one's hungry enough will swim.
Dette er flotte.
Good afternoon. We are Imp, and this afternoon we're going to perform a piece called Lick the Pitch. The piece is written for one instrument, which is called the pseudophone, which uses the conductivity of the human body. It's a very unusual piece in that it's based on touch and endurance. The performers are asked to lift their hands and grip the instrument as tightly as possible. And as fatigue sets in and their spit dries, so the pitch gradually descends.
You just got to enjoy yourself today, but oh, not too Frankie. It doesn't matter about directions because I'll cut you north, south, east and west. Play the levels as I know best, with pliers and saw, your garroted throat, your dangling thorax upon my jaw. With me with horses, I'm an engineer. You shall forget this, do not worry. Grow strong, grow up, and be something I am not. Le Crypto Jean.
was Erlenkönig mir leise verspricht.
They've got potential. They got style. They got what I want.
We're doing a kind of a brief introduction into sort of electroacoustic music. John Cage, Pierre Chaffard, a bit of Brian Eno as well, because it's quite easily accessible amongst the kind of craziness of the rest of them. And then what I've done is I've set split them into groups, set each group a mission, and missions like on the lines of find a sound that exists within a certain space or has a space, do you know what I mean, and only exists within that space.
Hey Mum, how you doing? It's been a while since I saw you. Australia was the last time when you packed me off for a tenner in 1952 it was. But it's good to see you're in there. I mean, you've shrunk a wee bit, you've got wires hanging about, you know, things are coming out where they should. But I just wanted to say I love you, Mum. I always did. And Dad, and Polly, and Morgana, and all my friends and family, and the ladybirds, especially the ladybirds.